Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the very kind introduction. I was trying to debate what to talk about today, and I figured I'd just talk about some of the recent work we've been up to. For Jumbo and Kate, who were just in Columbia 2 days ago, you'll have seen the talk already.
Don't worry.
So don't spoil any of the
You'll notice that.
But this is just some stuff that we've been excited about, and but anyways, I hope we can keep it pretty casual. So if you have questions, feel free to interrupt, and we don't have to get through all the slides. I've been reading lately a lot about animals and just how smart different animals are. There's a really cool book called "Are We Smart Enough to Know How Smart Animals Are?" It's a good book to check out. Yeah. In particular, one animal that is really smart are crows. And so this is let me start this over here. This is all in a moment. This is a crow that is trying to get the food in the center tube here, right? Have you seen this video before? Yeah, this is a really cool video. I love this video here. This crow is trying to get the food in the center tube here. And what the crow does is it starts doing these kind of science experiments and takes some things in the environment and starts popping it in the water tubes here and sees what happens. And the crow doesn't realize, doesn't know, this is hidden to the crow, that these two tubes are connected, but the blue one is not, right? And what's kind of the genius of this crow is it only takes two tries of putting water in the blue tube for it to realize that's not productive towards my goal anymore. Only 2 tries, right? And it basically builds this causal model, basically, right? From just this few shot experiments about what's going on in the environment in order to solve this task. So I think this is just an amazing ability that crows have. And it's just, we're so far away from building machines that have this type of behavior, right? This level of intelligence. The same researchers asked a kid to solve this task, a 2-year-old kid to solve this task. And the kid spent the entire time trying to jam his fingers in to grab the food. Right? So crows are maybe smarter than little kids. So before I get too far, though, in this talk, I want to have a disclaimer, which is I really do like LLMs. So I think the LLMs are really cool. And there's really interesting research to do on LLMs. There's this weird alien intelligence somehow, and the representations they build and the capabilities they have are incredible. And whenever someone says an LLM can't do it, you know a paper is going to come the next day showing, yes, an LLM actually can't do it, right? So there's all these surprising research about LLMs. So if you work on LLMs, don't be discouraged from this talk. There's a whole other talk I have, which is about how much I love LLMs. But I want to actually compare LLMs to the crow, right? And it's just amazing how far the current generation of AI is what goes on in this very tiny brain, right? And like we all saw this news about Microsoft now building a nuclear power plant, which is directly connected to a data center to train LLMs, right? And meanwhile, a crow just has a couple of worms, and it can do all this, right? It's just so Nash, we're talking about this today, right? Just the efficiency, right, of these biological brains, right, is amazing, right? Both in terms of like the amount of power it takes, but also just how fast it's able to do it, right, in real time, right? And so this, I've been thinking this is sort of a key challenge for us going forward, especially in academia where my lab doesn't have a nuclear power plant next to it, right? So if we could actually develop these efficient algorithms to operate in such low power, that could be really transformative. LLMs also have this problem where they hallucinate, they make up lots of different things, right? Well, any creature that's embodied has to face these physical consequences, right, to their actions, right? If a crow hallucinates, it might die, right? It might go off and be food instead of finding the food. So it's just somehow this type of comparison I think is so big, and just this gap right between what we have as these amazing AI machines versus these pro. And really, like I think part of this is due to the training paradigm these systems are trained in, right? These LLMs are trained from imitation in many ways, right? They're trying to compress what's on the internet, and also from feedback. So it's trying to learn from imitation. While look at all these animals, and really what's clear from them is that they learn from their surroundings, right? They're embodied in this world, and they learn from this environment. So we've been, my group has been thinking a lot about these questions, and trying to draw these comparisons. And we've been starting to think about these questions about like, if you were to build, we have to build intelligent machines with these types of constraints. What type of intelligence algorithm would come out from that, right? You have to have an embodied system that has to learn in the real world, has consequences from it, has low power, doesn't have a lot of resources. What type of intelligence method or algorithm would come out from? So we don't have too many answers. We're just getting started on this. I don't have the answers in this talk, but these are just some questions we've been talking about, and I want to show you some of the progress we've been making towards this. So one of the first questions we started thinking about was, how these crows, for example, are doing these kind of science experiments inside the world, right? They come up with hypotheses. Maybe they wonder, is this tube connected to the food or not, and should it take an action there? Can we build a system that actually can do these types of science experiments? So one sort of experiment I think all of us has had as a kid is learning how to design paper airplanes. Who's done this before? You've all thrown a paper airplane. Everyone's hand hopefully goes up, but your hand didn't go up. Okay. You've thrown paper airplane before, right?
You should ask who has done it during class.
That's what, yeah. Who took their exam and turned the paper airplane? So this is something like a very basic science experiment that we have, right? Like we take paper as a medium, we start playing with it, right? And you try out different folds, and you try to see like, okay, how do I get a plane that can travel the farthest? Right? So our lab was a computer vision lab. I've actually never touched robot part over my life. And we decided the only way to actually investigate this question was actually to buy some robots. So we bought some robots. I was super scared because I confuse a screwdriver with a hammer. Those are like the same type of tool to me, right? And so we built this contraption with these arms. It would print out a piece of paper, and then these robot arms would pick up the paper and start folding it in different ways, right? It would cheat a little bit. It would stick this thing on. The arm would come back, right, and then it would throw it. It went nowhere, right? But basically, you can have cameras here that observe, right, how far this plane went, and we can build this automation loop, right? This learning loop where this system can design different paper planes, actually fold it, throw it, and watch and see how far this goes. So the question we had was, can we build this system that actually can maximize the travel distance? Can it find the design that's going to cause this paper airplane to travel far? And we're in New York City, so our labs aren't very big, so very far is not too far away. Okay, and so we built a system that would basically learn over several hours. It would be throwing hundreds of pieces of paper. We recycled all the paper at the end, so we're worried about that. And it would basically be proposing these designs over and over again, just watching what happen. So, yeah.
How much your system has to know about the material of this paper?
That's a great question. Yeah. That's a fantastic question. So we put no assumptions into that this is paper. We have a design space, which is we only allow the system to fold the paper twice, and it only has to pick up
the weight.
We don't explicitly tell it the weight, although the weight never changes. So it's the same weight of paper. So implicitly you might know those things. I'm going to get to some work actually with paper in a bit, where the prior work on it actually modeled paper. And they came up with like first principles paper to do like problem.
Elastic it is.
Right, exactly. So I'll show some results in about probably 15 slides. We'll stick to that where we can learn something that beats what a first principle based approach would do. So, but yeah, great question. But very much the goal here is, it's kind of motivated by how I think very much about a kid would be experimenting with paper. They don't know the way, they don't have these physical principles of paper. They have to discover that just through experimentation. Right?
One of the other.
Was it?
Either you have to know or you have to discover.
Right, exactly. And I don't want to overclaim anything here. I don't think this is actually discovering too much about paper. Right, we have to probably do a much richer problem here, but it would be interesting to do that. Okay, so we have this very simple design space, which is where should it place the folds, right? And then also what is the angle that it should release the plane at? So we do hard code this kind of motion that the arms can go like this, and it has to just say when should it release its finger to let the plane go, right? Very small design space. Okay, so we built this whole automation pipeline. I had some incredible students that were not afraid of hardware that built out this whole pipeline that would build the paper airplane, would throw it, and then watch it, and then we can compute automatically, basically, how far this plane went. And what we want to be doing is we want to be figuring out what is the design here that will maximize this distance. Yeah.
Isn't feedback only the final distance, or do you also track the trajectory of the plane?
In this work, we're only going to care about the final spot it lands. However, it's very interesting to thinking about that. But is there intermediate steps here? So. Okay, so you want to find these designs that maximize this quantity. This is one reason why this is a very hard problem, is that none of this is differentiable. Right? It's all happening in the real world, right? So how do you do this design problem? The way we approach this is we simultaneously learn this predictive model that as it's designing planes and throwing and watching what happens, we simultaneously train a neural net that tries to predict the performance of each plane conditioned on the design. So this is a surrogate model, basically, of this physical process. Right? And because this is differentiable, you can basically get gradients from that. Right, so you're doing design problem. You say, I want to optimize for the design here that through gradient descent that's going to maximize the distance that we think this plane is going to travel. It's not the actual distance, right? It's the distance that the surrogate model thinks it's going to travel. And so we just had a very simple epsilon greedy type of approach where you have a fixed number of iterations. At each iteration, you either randomly sample design because you want to explore a bit, or you optimize according to your surrogate model what's going to travel, and you continuously train the surrogate model based off of this. And then once you've done enough iterations, you ran out of time, you can just find the maximum one according to surrogate models, what your final design is going to be.
And you're only optimizing the design at this point, right?
It's only optimizing design. Inside X is also the angle that you throw this at.
All right.
So this is a 5-dimensional design space. This is fairly small.
And the fold, etc., is all like the particular way of implementing your design is already hard coded.
That's hard coded. Yeah. But it's I think there's a much more advanced version of this problem where you can do full or origami on this to create all these different types of folds. Okay, so after a little bit of learning, right, you can throw this design this plane, and when it throws it, goes a little bit further, right? And here's the design it comes up with. Right? When you do about 50 iterations, it starts building a pretty good design here, right? And then the best iteration was 91. As this plane that goes all the way farthest, basically the camera can't see it at that point anymore. This is the best design the system could discover. Here's the design. Does anybody notice anything interesting about the design? Anything unusual or unexpected about this whole pattern comes up with?
Is it like slightly asymmetric?
Yeah. So it's not a symmetric design, which confused us. And so we actually spent a long time trying to figure out what was going on. It turns out that this was the best design because there's an AC vent up here that we didn't know about. And it was blowing air throughout all the experiments. So it actually built this design that would curve it into the AC vent because to make it go a little bit further. Yeah, so we did this whole thing. I guess the Zoom bar is okay here, but we did this whole kind of horny process. This kind of whole experiment took about 3 hours for this to run. What you're seeing here on the top here is a visualization of a bird's eye view of where the plane lands at each trial, right? So in the very beginning, let me start this over. In the very beginning, right, it's kind of quite bad designs. Around like the 30th iteration rate, it starts getting reasonably good, right? And then eventually, yeah, around 90s when it really starts to get great designs there.
So did you find in this study that you needed to be really careful about how much you update the model after each experience, the predictive model, how much you optimize through the predictive model? Like if you really kind of like create an adversarial example through a predictive model, most of the time you're just going to get jumped, right?
Right.
So you kind of like these are the kinds of issues that you very often run into with like model-based kind of stuff, right?
Right. We didn't have too many issues with this, to be honest. We couldn't afford to do this too many times because it was you have to do this all in the physical world, so you can't hyperparameter search this, right? Yeah, Roshi, a student working in this. It seemed like we got this to work pretty well. And I think the reason why Michelle's example didn't come up was because we were constantly learning the model as well at the same time.
Yeah, but even so, like there is the issue of updating your model too much on the limited data that you have.
You overfit that.
You overfit the data.
Yeah. It's gonna be tricky to check. I think what makes this problem a little bit easier is just the simplified design space here. This problem can get much more complex and also very interesting in terms of this design space starts to explode and how you get priors more structured. Here's where modeling paper might be very important. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I think a couple of slides ago you mentioned that you use the best action like organized.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So is this like design space discrete?
No, it's continuous. Because each place you can place the fold, basically it's where you're going to draw this line. That is continuous.
But within a continuous space, how do you get the mass of the?
This is just with doing grading ascent here. So you're doing backprop through F to figure out what is the X that will have a maximum here. So it's maybe not the global maximum, but it's going to be a local max.
Predict just a fold line. You could have done it that a human would fold it and then put it on the robot. Right? I mean, is there any uncertainty between the motion of the robot, like the agility of the robot to do it?
So let me show you this. So we tried to. It's not quite what you're saying, but it's related to this. We had a master's student in our lab try to come up with his own designs. And then he attached it to the robot and had it throw, right? So we actually could beat the black. So this is a plot of how far it went versus the iteration. The black dashed line is the master's student trying to do this task. So they also got 100 tries. Right? So we actually slightly beat the master's student at doing this task. I think because the student jumped on working, this didn't actually know about the event in some ways. So he was always making it symmetric. I think one of the main things the value of actually automating this is just being able to do this faster, right? You can if you automate this a little bit more quickly, come up with these.
How good is your model of predicting the distance after that?
For
any fold.
Yeah. How good the model? I don't remember the numbers anymore. It was pretty good. It's not 100%, but it's pretty good. Okay, so this is kind of a fun project for us. It's not all fun games. We also started experimenting with a different type of design problem, which is building what's called a Kirigami gripper. And this goes back to where the prior work on this had actually physically modeled the paper. So what a Kirigami gripper is, you know what a Kirigami gripper is? Have you seen this concept? This idea where you can basically take paper and cut it, and then when you apply force to it, you can pick up forms of gripper out of paper. And this is kind of an interesting type of gripper. I guess one potential application of this could be in medical cases where you want a gripper that's disposable. You can throw it away. Right? It's very cheap. So the original paper that did Kirigami grippers, the way they found these cuts basically was they modeled paper from first principles, and they tried to physically kind of run that model backwards to figure out where should you place these cuts. And they built a very, very good type of gripper. We were interested in the learning problem, which is, can we actually discover these types of grippers? So we're not going to model it. We're just going to let it make these cuts and see if it can discover these. So originally we bought a laser to try to cut paper. We quickly realized that was not a safe thing to be doing. And we borrowed what's called a recut machine instead, which is basically a printer that cuts paper. We built kind of the same type of pipeline where the system would propose different ways of placing the cuts. This pre-cut machine would then cut the paper. Here, we just have a person manually pick up the thing from the printer and put it on the arms. And then these are load cells that measure how much force that gripper is going to apply. And so the learning problem is, where should I place these cuts and how big should these cuts be, right, to maximize the amount of force that we're going to have. So we apply the same that we have in the paper.
Do they all have to be parallel cuts, and like, is it already limited in some way?
It's also limited.
Okay.
The constraint is that it has to be parallel cuts, right? And so it's the X position of each of these cuts, and also the height. Yeah, so coupled up with a pretty good gripper, I think it has enough force to lift 3.5 strawberries. That's the scientific term here. It has enough force to lift 3.5 strawberries. And it can lift up all different types of objects, which is kind of result. There's just a bunch of more montage types of objects that it's able to pick up. And I just want to emphasize here that all this is happening in the real world. So there's no simulation here. There's no LLMs. It's all just basically learning in the real world. We create this loop, right? And you can automate the design of that. So here's the evolution of the types of cuts that this made. Again, it's the amount of force versus the duration here, versus a couple different baselines here. So the very beginning, the initial design they initially proposed is quite bad. I think the paper just rips. Towards the end, it actually specialized in design. So we also were able to, one way we do this design is we could actually adapt it to different types of objects. So the original gripper that we found wasn't able to pick up a Hershey's Kiss. It was too small. So with just a little bit of fine tuning, so you basically can fine tune the gripper. You start training it again, initialize from where it last had a solution. You can specialize the gripper to different types of objects. So here it was able to specialize the gripper towards Hershey's Kisses, and also for larger objects too. The original design wasn't able to pick up a large block. Okay, so we've been thinking a lot about this, this loop about you want to start building these intelligent creatures, intelligent machines that are a bit closer to a crow, they have this constant, perception, prediction, action, learning loop, right? Where you keep on doing experiments in the real world, and you learn from those experiments and revise what you're doing. So how do you automate this loop where you learn about your world by taking action, and that refines the whole system. This is our first kind of foray into it. Quickly, you realize there's lots of problems with doing this, a lot of practical issues about why simulation becomes so popular. One is that robots are always breaking things, right? You're going to break themselves or break things inside the lab. They overheat. If you let it run 24/7, they're going to overheat and break on you. And there's this issue about environments that don't reset, right? In order to actually continuously learn in this environment, you have this environment that's going to reset to some state in a consistent way. So I think this is practically why I think there's been actually a lot of discussion in various machine learning circles, whether it's NLP or computer vision, these adjacent areas of robotics, about how we can only do learning in the real world. We have kind of these much smarter machines, but these practical issues are always the things that come up that prevent this from working. So we're thinking about this, and Rishi, my student working on this, had this really creative idea to overcome these issues, which we started to explore, which was, rather than doing all this on land, can we go underwater and train these self-learning systems that can learn to do tasks underwater. And this actually, okay, this is, I think, an interesting problem for a couple of reasons. We can pause this video before we get too nauseous. But practically, water is great because it cools the robot. It's not going to overheat, right? It has this safety buffer, right? That's hard to, not going to break things in the tool. Very easy for things to reset, just going to fall to the ground, right? So it has all these practical benefits. There's something also beautiful to us about life starting underwater. And maybe this is where machine life should start underwater. So I don't know. You can hypothesize maybe you actually need some like safe playground to actually learn inside. So we started looking at this problem of we bought this. It's a few $1,000. We bought the cheap version of the robot. There's a more expensive one too if you want a more expensive one. That basically is this fish robot that has some cameras here. And it has a gripper here. And then there's thrusters here that control the robot. And so we're looking at, can we have this robot system learn autonomously on its own underwater just through this trial and error. And we want to develop this method. In some ways, we just let it go and let it learn about things underwater. We haven't fully delivered that, so I'll just show you some progress towards that. But this was a very fun project for us to be working on. I really Rishi as a student delivering all this. He came up with a whole idea. That was really cool. We had to go through this. So the way we solve this, way we approach this is we first did a little bit of behavior cloning on the underwater robot, where Rishi would remotely control the robot to pick up different things or do different tasks underwater. Turns out that people are really bad at operating these things underwater. This is an alien world, right? It's very different from land. It's really hard actually. So this is one of the demonstrations that Rishi collected much later on in the project. It was much worse at the very beginning of the project. And what happens is underwater you have much more momentum, right? So you overshoot the target very fast. So you have these very suboptimal demonstrations. So what we wanted to do was, after you've learned with behavior cloning to initialize this policy.
能够交互怎么用来着？
Okay, I don't think that's a question, but okay. So after you do a little behavior cloning to initialize this to reach from a place, We then are going to do reinforcement learning to basically learn scaling factor on the actions that's going to take. This corresponds basically to the speed that you're going to apply to each action. And the way we're going to do this is the same framework we showed before with paper airplane, where you deploy this policy, you pick some scaling factor here, you can put it applied to the robot, you get some reward. And you train the surrogate model to predict what is each scaling factor, what is the type of reward that you're going to have. And then you take the best one and use that as your final policy. Yep.
Do you find this parameterization was better than something like just a sum of the zero? Like, is there a specific reason you did scaling?
And also, I had the same question, but also, what is the action space here?
Yeah.
Like, why does scaling?
Oh yeah. So action space is basically how much force you're
On each thruster?
on each thrust tester.
Ah,
Yeah. So one thing we're looking at was whether you could do position control, where you actually specify where it's going to go, but it's hard to do that underwater. So yeah, you could do it. You could do that as well. We did not explore that. We just looked at that scale. We measured how much force the gripper got back. So when the gripper closed, how much?
So it's literally the number of parameters you're optimizing with RM is the number of actions in your action space, the number of dimensions in your action vector.
Yeah.
So delta is a
That's
constant.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, and so we let this thing run over a couple of hours. Here it is just running overnight, basically trying to pick up this rock in the pool and then dropping it immediately, right? And trying to refine this policy. Okay, so Rishi got all these really cool results where you get this policy that could, this closed loop policy that can grasp different rocks. So all the types of rocks, geometry. This is a rock that's not seen before. They will pick it up and bring it into the search practice.
I think so. I think that's very
So that's good.
Is the reward coming only from the pressure or from vision?
Yeah, it's just from the pressure. Yeah. I think doing it from vision would be very interesting.
Do you observe any like reward hacking, or maybe the robot learns to like press the gripper like against the floor or something, or anything just like not desirable, but like still optimizer?
Right. No, I don't think so. Rishi would know better answer, but I don't think we did not talk about this. So I assume this was an easy fix that happened.
I'm very curious about the delta scaling thing.
Yeah.
What was the eventual vector that the delta converged to after that? Like, what could it possibly do with such a minimal tweak of the behavior cloning policy that actually got it to?
Yeah, what happens is it avoids this scenario where it doesn't overshoot now.
So it just like tones down all the actions by a little bit?
It can slow down and it can speed up. So
Okay.
let me show you nice video showing this.
But delta is a constant vector, right?
Yeah. So here's a video of it. So here's the human trying to do it. Here's just behavior cloning without any of this. And here's where you're learning this scaling. So it can, this is from the first person view of this fish. So it does it faster, right? So in some respects it can speed up, right? In other respects it will slow down so it doesn't overshoot. I think when it overshoots, it's actually quite bad because you lose track of the object completely.
And how does it learn to move? Because it's also kind of when it's resetting, it's going back to the original position. When it picked the rock, it went up.
Right. So we also put there are a bunch of cameras that we put around the pool that watch the robot, so it can reset basically by using these cameras to track the robot as it moves in the pool and move it back to the starting.
Got it.
But that is just a hand design policy. No learning.
Yeah.
Okay, so it recovers from different interventions. This co-author flew out and started moving the rock around. So it's fairly robust to those types of things. Works on different types of objects. So if you drop your drink in the pool, they'll pick it up. So it's like, tried this on the it wasn't Halloween at the time of this project, but they had Halloween kind of skeletons that they threw in the pool, and tried to do a rescue of the skeleton here. I'm not sure that grabbing you by the arm is the best way to rescue you in the water, but it's a start.
It's better than the head.
Yeah, better than the head. And this is kind of the most complex task, which is a trash sorting task, which was it had to pick up different objects and put it into a different bin. Here's a third-person view of this whole thing going on. Put it into a different bin depending on the object. So, like trash had to go in the blue bin, toys had to go in the yellow bin, and then rocks had to go in the green bin. So, this is a kind of a compound model here. There's the self-learned policy to pick up the different objects, and then just to demonstrate there's a CNN that classifies the type of object and the size of the bench that we'll go into. Okay. So one of the main comparisons was basically, is it worthwhile to do this self-learning or is behavior cloning all you need? And so what this plot is showing is how long it takes to complete the task versus how many episodes have self-learning. So yeah, so people are kind of initially are better actually than the behavior clone policy, but with the self-learning, you actually can get things it's better than the first person. I don't think it's. In some ways, this is such a weird world. I think all of our intuitions break down underwater, so it's a very interesting place to actually get better than human performance. Is there a question? No. Okay.
Well, I am kind of curious in the previous section, like I didn't quite follow how you extended from the grasping policy to the like sorting. You say there was like a, was it learned or just a hard?
No, it's not an end-to-end it's not an end-to-end policy. The grasping is end-to-end, and then there's a CNN that classifies what the object is. That then determines which bin it should go to. And then navigation underwater. This is a very simple pool, so navigation underwater is not too hard. You just could drive the robot there and release the boat. Obviously, if this was a river or something, that simple navigation policy would not work. Okay, so it's very hard to get a pool in New York. So Roshi flew out to his uncle's house in Texas to do the whole project. And this is crazy easy. And his nephew is living there and wondering what the hell's going on with his, setup. He shipped the whole his whole equipment there. So it was like he shipped out his desktop, the multiple version of his robot, and was doing all this projects. The reimbursement office was wondering what the hell was going on with shipping stuff to his address in Texas. But I think it was worth it. I think it was such a cool project. So we're trying to find a pool to continue it in New York. So if anybody has a pool there, please let us know because it's hard to find pools in New York City. Okay. So how much time do I got? When do I end?
It ends at 4.
4. Okay. I can do this really fast. This is another type of thing. We've been kind of experimenting with robots. It's been really fun for me because I've never really touched robots. It's been fun just to kind of play with hardware a little bit. And fortunately, I haven't broken anything too bad yet. So we've also been thinking about this question of generalization. How do you build these policies that can generalize to a lot of different cases? My extreme example is like if you learn to turn on one faucet, you generalize to an entirely different type of faucet to turn it on. So I think in a lot of areas like in computer vision or NLP, we've actually gotten really good at generalization, right? It's pretty incredible, right? And doing this in the physical world is going to be more challenging. I mean, this is the low-class system everyone's seen, so I think it's point. But here, generalization is basically generalizing to the same chair, but in a slightly different spot. Right? So how do you go way beyond this, right? What is the right mechanism to go way beyond this? We can generalize to chairs in a completely different school. So one of the challenges here, I think, is just the size of data that we're able to get. We have great generalization in vision because of the amount of data we have, and that's probably the key to generalization, right? It's just the amount of data and amount of experience that you can have. The amount of physical or robot data we have is much smaller. About a year or two ago now, we had this model come out called 0123, which is doing 3D reconstruction. And it was doing this, and we called it 0123 because it was zero shot, one image to 3D object. And it could 3D reconstruct any type of object from a single image. So the really fun result was it could 3D reconstruct things that don't actually exist in the world. And so it would build these 3D models of paintings. So this is Picasso's white flowers and Van Gogh's self-portrait. So they were able to do that reconstruction, actually synthesize different views. It had this great generalization ability to outside the training set to these different types of things. And so we got interested in thinking, like, can we apply this similar type of idea to robotics, right? Is there a way to use these generative models that have been trained on so much data and have it be useful in the real world too to generalize? So what we're going to do is we're thinking about this perception, prediction, action. We're going to can we replace this prediction step with the latest and greatest in what generative models are able to do, especially for video generation? What type of generalization are we able to get from that? So we built this system to perform different tasks within this workspace. Here, the particular task is to scoop the macaroni into the box. That's what the task is. And the way this, and in this particular setup, it's never seen macaroni before. It's never seen this box before. And the goal is, so how do you actually control a robot to do that scooping task? The way the system works is it generates a video of a person performing that task with the tool. And we then track that tool and basically have the robot imitate that trajectory in order to perform the task. And so the idea here is that the video generator can basically form the plan for how you should perform this task. And this can be leveraging all of the large-scale data that does exist on the internet. And then once you have that plan, it's relatively straightforward to translate this into actual robot actions. So we called this system Dreamitate because you want to dream up what the video generator what you do, and then you imitate what your dream says. And so the mechanism for generalization here is basically this what the video generator has learned, right? If this can generalize to the scene, we can 3D track objects very well, which tell us the position of this end effector, which the robot can directly execute. Okay, so there's a couple of problems, a couple of challenges you have to overcome to do this. One is just the reliability of Gen AI. These systems they create these beautiful videos. It's incredible what they generate, but they're often wrong in subtle ways, right? And so I've actually gotten very interested in this. I think one of the main things I got interested about this is doing things in the physical world is a way to evaluate generative models because it keeps you honest. right? So if you, I love this example from Sora. I mean, in some ways it's a beautiful scene. If you look very carefully at the cars driving behind the trees, they like disappear all of a sudden behind the tree. You go behind a branch and they're gone, right? It's a very subtle type of thing that we don't notice, but this is physically very wrong, right? And when they go out of distribution, like here's one of our, the very beginning of this experiment, we were playing around with this. Here's what a video generator does for this type of robot. There's all these crazy things that just can't happen. It's not aligned to what actually happens in the real world. Second problem is there's this body gap, right? Like the human hand is so much more advanced than what a robot hand is able to do. So even if you could generate videos of people using their hands to perform tasks, it's very hard to translate that into an actual robot action. Dinesh, we were talking a little about this. Dinesh may have solved this problem in a recent work that's coming on.
Not quite. We're beginning.
Okay. Not quite, but this is a very real problem, right? Is that our hand is so much more advanced than what we can pull from the hardware. We don't have the hardware yet for the human hand able to do. So the main idea is that we can align what generative models are able to do and what robots are able to do through the end effect vector. And as long as the generative model can build a trajectory for the end effector that we're able to track, we can then basically generalize to a lot of different tasks. So we 3D printed a whole bunch of different tools, and we 3D printed a human version of the tool as well as a robot version of the tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to train the generative model to generate videos of people using the human tool, and which we can then track, which we then can directly translate to what the robot is doing when it's the robot version of that. So we're going to basically fine-tune this video generator. It's trained off the video generator is one of the state-of-the-art open source generative models for video. It takes an image and generates a video out. And we collected some demonstrations. This is John Bong working on the project as a master's student in our group. He's also applying for PhD programs this coming year. And he would use these 3D printed tools to demonstrate doing some of these tasks. And we could then fine tune the video generator so it would always generate videos of, and all those arms you see are John Bong's hallucinated arms performing a task. Because it's a 3D printed object, we have a CAD model for it. We use a 3D tracker to track and to generate video where it says the trajectory and imitate. So our focus was on generalization. We really wanted to work on this problem of you trained on some objects or some environment and you want to test on a completely different environment. So here's this one experiment we did where you're trained on the alphabet, but you're being tested on numbers and shapes. So if you only do behavior cloning, this is with diffusion policy here. The goal is to push these foam letters into the target here. This behavior cloning only baseline basically cannot do it because it's never seen a 7 before. It is not able to generalize to this 7. Our model, what it does is it generates a video, and it actually generates a stereo video because we need 3D, so it generates stereo of someone pushing it into the right position, and then we have the robot version of that tool, which we can directly translate into actions to push that, even though it's never seen this
Sorry, maybe I missed it. How did you get the generative model to be so good, so precise that you could track and copy those actions to a robot?
Yeah, we didn't do anything that fancy. We took so if you don't use a fancy generative, if you don't do any fine tuning in generative model, you start getting stuff like this. What we did is we collected some videos. So these are cameras here. Collected about 100 examples of us using these tools to perform different tasks. And that was enough basically for the video generator to generate consistent
And it's the same video model for all tasks.
Same video model for all.
Okay.
And you are doing one round of optimization at the beginning. There's no closed loop planning.
Yes, so that's a caveat. So what we're showing here is all open loop.
It's all open loop. I mean, it's actually more impressive that it's open loop and it still works.
Well, we're working on a closed loop version right now. Well, the main reason why it can't be closed loop is like you see the robot arm is still in.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're actually working on a closed loop one that will avoid this. So yeah, here's one generalization. Okay, so here's this type of kind of push shape task. And so it's amazing inconsistency because this video generator has to generate stereo pairs. And it has to generate 3D consistent stereo pairs, and it does. So it's amazing basically what these vision models are able to do. There's nothing fancy going on. It's just fine. But I think there's something nice about this because right, the pre-training of the video generator knows how people would perform that task. And this fine-tuning is just aligning it to the type of hardware type of tools that a robot would.
Is the just out of curiosity again, is the foam actually an important choice here? Does it help make, for example, the contact easier to model and prevent compounding errors over time or something like that?
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a lot of friction, so it's not going to slip.
Gotcha.
Okay, we did on a bunch of different objects. Here's more on scooping. So these are this is just me in video. It's not a real person's hand, right? It's just generated, and there's a robot.
Carl, scooping is very impressive, but the pushing of the 7,
Yeah.
I think it could have been done with the self-16 Sergei model.
It's true. It's true. I don't know. I mean, I think for me, what's impressive is just a learning-based approach, benchmarking learning between learning-based methods. I agree that the results here are not. I don't think it's ready to deploy yet, right? There's a lot of tasks this cannot not do. So, I mean, we're working on version 2 now, which is trying to do more complex tasks. But to me, the thing I want to emphasize is just the ability for it to generalize compared to what another learn-based policy do.
Yeah. Watching this, being as well as I am, there are many ways how you get still the cat, as they say.
Yeah.
One of the things that occurs to me that if I do this, first of all, I first test the competencies of the materials that I'm going to school.
Oh, I see. You would actually try to learn more about the objects.
Yeah, I mean, how do you know that it's that you can really penetrate this?
Yeah.
So there are very, what I'm coming to, but there are some basic physics-based approaches.
Yeah.
People of my generation advocate very much. Before you go to complexity,
Yeah.
you are somehow skipping the whole thing and going to the complex part.
Yeah.
You see, and I don't know if you, there's a woman here, famous psychologist, child psychologist. And I remember she had a book.
Yeah.
And these people devote their life to observe how children do
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Right.
And it's remarkable
Yes.
that children somehow innately.
Yes. I agree. I think that I mean, even if you go back to the crow at the very beginning, it's doing these.
She was a student.
Okay. Be curious who it is. Oh, that's Bucky. Yeah, right.
She's a professor, she moved the graduate from
Yeah, at Harvard, right? Yeah.
classical thing, but anyway, she did some beautiful experiments with children about these physical manipulations.
I mean, I think you're getting at is like, I think Spelke's been an advocate of that child as a scientist.
Oh,
That,
absolutely, absolutely.
right. And I agree. I think that would be, that's, and even, I think I even argue that even more basic is the crow is a scientist. Yeah. So, yeah, here.
I used to go to lectures, so I learned quite a bit from them.
Yeah.
I would recommend the students to look at the cycle.
Yeah.
That's the profession.
Right. Yeah, I would love to talk more about this actually. Okay, I think I don't want to keep you for after time. Let me, we're still there's a lot of issues here. But often generate plans that are not realizable. Three-handed where it has to rotate an object. So anyways, it's still not quite there, but yeah, we were interested. We thought the generalization was interesting. So anyways, I still think we're a long ways away from. I still very impressed by what animals, what kids are able to do, and I think it's very useful to look to nature right now, especially with sometimes just with all the progress in AI and how many people are working in AI, it's hard to find your what differentiates you. But actually, to go to nature and look at just at a high level of what different creatures are able to do, you do go so far away from where they are. Anyways, happy to talk more if you want time offline.